Hello, and how are you preparing for life after lockdown? You've probably seen it stated that whilst over the last year we've all been in the same storm, we've not all been in the same boat. My own boat has been big enough to have its own office, wasn't crowded with children needing to be homeschooled, had all the resources it needed to keep running, and was able to dock in plenty of places where I could get access to some green space. I've been able to carry on working, maintain social contact, learn some new skills, and engage in new business ventures. But even a casual glance down the road where I live reveals people with very different experiences. There's the experience of being on furlough and now adjusting to returning to work after a long absence. The experience of redundancy as an employer decides to cut wage costs by reducing staff. The experience of battling through with health conditions, and the experience of coming to the conclusion that enough really is enough and deciding to take early retirement. So as the storm clouds of the past year begin to recede, let me share a short piece of alliteration from which to begin to chart out the new world of work that is starting to emerge. One frame of reference that's changing with respect to work is that of place. We're moving into a time which is normalising different expressions of working. One model, likely to become much more ubiquitous, is hybrid working, online and/or office-based. Where we work, our place, is becoming less important than the conditions in which we are working, our environment. So how are we starting to think about our own emerging working environments? Now, clearly, many of us and the organisations we work for will come up with different solutions to working remotely over lockdown, solutions which address the immediate crisis. But how many of these are sustainable in the longer term? Let's explore this further with my second thought, pattern. Many of us will have experimented with different working patterns over the last year and may well try out some more as the year unfolds. And we may have started to rethink historical concepts of working patterns. Let me give you one example. Some employers offer staff part-year working. Typically, this allows parents to be at home with their children over the summer holidays. Now, on that basis, the ability to work from home might seem like an opportunity to get something of the best of both worlds. You could be with your children around you over the summer without the loss of earnings. On the other hand, we know from the experience of lockdown that there are many parents who find it a real struggle working at home when their children are around. So instead of having colleagues who ask to work at home over the summer to be with their children, we may have them asking to be able to work in the office to get some space from their children. How ready are we to have current ideas of working patterns not just revised, but turned on their heads? This takes me to my third thought about power. By that I mean the ability, the power to do one thing or another. Working remotely has definitely been an empowering experience for some, liberated from the grind and stress of the daily commute, instantly connected to the world through a reliable internet connection, all experienced from the comfort and convenience of their own home. But even with all the necessary infrastructure in place, how many colleagues would find this disempowering? Think for a moment about the extroverts in your organisation, people who are energised by and work at their hardest and most creatively in a busy and active, people-rich working environment. And reflect on this. These may be people who you recruited and who chose to work with you precisely because they saw your workplace as an environment conducive to being able to give of their best. The fact they are empowered to work at home because they have the necessary space and IT doesn't necessarily make that working environment empowering. And so we see emerging three frames of reference, like the three circles of a Venn diagram, all of which influenced each other: place, pattern, and power. As I've reflected on these issues with colleagues who work across a range of sectors and organisations, the following additional thought has emerged. As your teams start to come back together after lockdown and begin to shape their new approach to work, they'll be bringing with them a diverse range of experiences. They will return with a range of expectations, aspirations and insecurities. What will they be looking for going forward if what they took for granted in their previous working environment is no longer available to them? You and colleagues may well find it helpful to reflect on these 3 frames of reference. And this exercise may enable you to find a sweet spot in the middle of this diagram where these 3 frames come together to create the ideal working setup for your team or organisation. But until you've all had the time to share and really appreciate your various experiences of life and work during lockdown, it may seem more like looking at one of those spots that dances before your eyes, one that will never stay still quite long enough to decide where it really is. So perhaps you'd like a little time and a safe space to explore these questions in more detail, with peers from other organisations facing the same questions. My colleague Tom Wright and I are running an event on behalf of Coaching York at 10 o'clock on Wednesday the 19th of May, as part of our annual programme in support of International Coaching Week. We've given it the catchy title, Return, Reconnect, Rebuild, Future-Proofing Your Workplace Culture. It's free to join and you can find more details on the Coaching York website. Links to that and to the booking form are in the feed. Every success as you prepare for your own life after lockdown.